Hey everyone, I'm Debbie from MadameStitch, and I want to welcome you to the Granny Stitch Sampler Blanket Crochet Along. I really hope you've gotten your yarn and you are ready to get started because the first square dropped this morning. So we are talking about the Granny Stitch Sampler Blanket Crochet Along. I'll give you a couple of links at the end of this broadcast, but first, we want to talk about the square that released this morning. So the first square, my Sunburst Afghan Square, I'm going to share a little bit about the design of the square and talk about how it fits into the overall concept of the Granny Stitch sampler blanket. So first, if you don't know me and you don't know this already, I love granny squares a lot. I love everything about them, and I especially love that they're just my mindful go-to crochet. When I need to take a break, when I need to relax, granny squares are what I pick up always. They also make the perfect travel companion. I never go anywhere without my crochet, and 9 times out of 10, that crochet is going to be a granny square because they're just so portable. All right, so let me pull up this. All right, today the square is Sunburst Afghan Square, and I designed it, and I wanted to tell you just a little bit about it. So the Granny Stitch Sampler Blanket is all about finding ways to take that granny stitch, which is 3 double crochet in the same stitch or space, and combining it with other stitches and techniques to create really unique looks. So I invited 11 other designers, some of my best colleague friends, to create some unique squares for you during this crochet along that combine that granny stitch with things that they love. So for me, since the granny stitch and the granny square are my um, absolute favorite, I wanted something that added some contrast to the granny square but didn't take away from it. So you'll notice in my square, there are a lot, it looks like a lot of different things are going on. You've got a lot of different stitches being used, but you'll also notice that the granny square is front and center. There's no question that you can see that granny stitch. All right, so my square starts with a circle. This is actually a pretty common excuse me, a pretty common crochet technique in squares where you start with a circle in the center, and then you use a round of some basic stitch to create the square. In this case, the center is made up of, the first round is double crochet. The second round is 2 double crochet clusters, and the third round is 3 double crochet clusters, and those have to get bigger because in order for it to be a flat circle, you have to increase as you build out your circle. So 3 rounds of circle, followed by a round of half double crochets that then create the corners that will make my square actually square. So then after that, you'll notice that there are loops that face the right side of the square. Those loops are created, excuse me, those loops are created by working in the third loop, or the loop just behind and underneath the top loop of the half double crochet round. That pushes that loop forward, and it makes it look like you've gone back after the fact and slip stitched a surface stitch on the top. But you don't have to do that because working in the third loop creates that and just melts it right into the design. So you don't have to do anything extra when you're done. I love that because when I'm finished, I want to be finished. Yes, you've got your ends to weave in, and that's always an issue for everyone. But I always love to do techniques that create the effects that I want as I go rather than having to do them on the surface. That's just me. So that's what I did in my square. You'll notice that after that, you've got the granny stitch. So the granny stitch is really just that group of 3 double crochet that you find in a traditional granny square. Again, I love that traditional granny square, so I love taking that granny stitch and finding ways to combine it with other stitches. The colors that I chose for the blanket kind of give it a fall vibe. So this sunburst pattern almost gives you a fall, think of a fall day. We're actually having one right now. It's an early fall day where it's still a little bit warm outside. The sun is shining, the sky is crystal clear blue, and you get these vibrant colors of all of the autumn colors and leaves, and the flowers coming out. Um, so this fits into the Granny Stitch sampler blanket, because the Granny Stitch is the main feature of my square, with those techniques that I described to you as enhancements, as creating this beautiful texture, beautiful visual effect, and something that's, I'm not going to say my traditional granny square is boring, because I don't find it boring. I think it's just incredibly beautiful and simple. But this gives a little bit more intricacy to the design, a little more visual interest, and it's a lot of fun to make. Now, you may be thinking, this looks like a lot, Deb. I'm not sure if I can make this because I'm just a beginner crocheter. Well, I get that. But in this square, I use all basic stitches. So you've got chain, you've got slip stitch, you've got single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. And if you know how to do those, the rest of it is explained in the pattern, and they're techniques that are pretty standard across the crochet community. Clusters, lots of people use clusters, so getting to know how to use those clusters is a great skill to have. Knowing how to work in the third loop, because there are, I think, a couple more squares in the blanket that use this technique to bring that loop to the surface, so it adds a little more interest. So if you start with my square and try all of these techniques, you'll be pretty good to go for the rest of the blanket. All right, so that's enough about the square. If you have any questions about it, certainly pop your questions in the Facebook group. Um, let's see if I've forgotten anything in here. All right, I think it's time to move on. You're going to find that all of the squares, all of the patterns are on the designer's website. So even though I'm hosting this crochet along, this square has its own separate post. So to get to it, you need to visit the crochet along post. This is the link, and I'll have the link in the comments as well. The link to the Granny Stitch sampler blanket crochet along. And all you have to do is scroll down to square one, that's me, and click on the link to go to that particular post. And that's where you'll find the forever free pattern. You can also get the PDFs for all of these square patterns just by when it releases. The designer will have that information on her blog post. And if you check until the next square releases, you may actually find a discount on the PDF for just this square. And don't forget the full pattern for the full blanket, everything you need to know, the introduction, the pattern notes, the special stitches, the joining, the blocking, all of that kind of stuff. Everything you need to make the blanket from start to finish is included in a pattern bundle that you can find the link to on that post right down there at the bottom of the screen. All right. So I want to thank you all for joining in the crochet along. This is really a gorgeous blanket. I had so much fun making it. It was just so much fun to work with other designers' patterns, to see how they conceived of their squares. And when it all came together, it was just this beautiful, here, let me exit out of this and I'll show you. Yeah, you see right there, there's over that shoulder, there's a little bit of the blanket showing my square and a couple of others. Check out on the crochet along post some pictures of the full blanket, because it's absolutely gorgeous. You will not want to miss it. All right, everybody, that's all I have to say about the Sunburst. Afghan Square, which you see right over there on my shoulder, and the crochet along. So I hope to see all of your projects starting soon. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.